My name is Chuck Fresh with Computer Care Clinic, and today's video is about password safety. We get a lot of questions in our business about what type of password should I use? How can I be safe? And this video should address some of those concerns. Details from the Department of Justice indictment of Russian hackers last week show that many people are still not taking routine precautions to safeguard their email accounts. Hackers are exploiting our bad password habits. The easiest way to hack an account is to use an all lowercase word that can be found in any dictionary. Now, it's amazing how many people are still using the word password as their password. That's the worst thing you could possibly do. And other words that are not password, but just common words that you can find in any dictionary are still very, very simple to hack. Russian hackers didn't have to work really hard to break into our government officials or corporate executive email accounts because they're as dumb as you and I are. Once someone gets into your email account, they can access your personal information, find account numbers, get a list of everyone in your address book, and a number of really other nasty things that you really don't want to happen. So what you really want to do is use strong passwords. As long as, well, as complicated as you can remember. We'll give you a couple tips on how to do that in this video. So you'll want to keep them nowhere but in your head, ideally, but they'll have to be memorable to you. Otherwise, you're going to forget them and you're going to drive yourself crazy. And it's a good idea to use a different password on every site or service that requires one. Many online break-ins result when people have reused the same exact passwords across email, social accounts, financial accounts. And if it's compromised at any one of those services, the others are suddenly vulnerable. You see what I'm saying? This way, if Vladimir figures out your AOL password, it will be unlikely he'll be able to hack into your bank accounts with the same exact email address and password because now they're going to be different. What's important to realize is that everything is hackable. And don't get comfortable just because you use a Mac instead of Windows. The same easy access is available on Apple brand devices because everyone is migrating to websites. And the websites are no different whether you're using a Mac or a PC, people. The good news is it's relatively easy to make things more difficult for hackers and to protect yourself. Here's a few simple tips and tricks to help safeguard your email account from hackers. Tip number 1, choose a stronger password. Most hacks are done by computer programs or algorithms, not people, that are created to use words found in a dictionary. Very easy to load because they're in spell checkers. They're built into these word processors and programs, and they're easy to extract and put into a program. Now, a computer can run a series of common words through a database incredibly quickly, and it's much easier for a hacking program to uncover passwords of all one case, meaning if they're all caps or if they're all lowercase. A great way to avoid this is to start off with a base password that you can easily remember. Perhaps the name of a long-lost childhood pet, the make or model of your first automobile. Maybe some sort of nonsense is always best, or a favorite toy. And then capitalize a letter or two to make it less hackable. Avoid using the names of your friends or family. For the sake of example, you could begin with, let's say, my first car was a Chevy, and my first pet's name was Rover. Well, it wasn't really Rover. I'm just making this up. But my first car was a Chevy. But good news for you hackers is I don't use this in any possible combination of any emails or financial accounts. So don't even try it. Actually, try it. It'll waste your time. So start off with a base password you can remember. In this case, Chevy Rover. Don't use this one because it's on the video, obviously, and somebody else is going to enter that in their database as soon as they see this. Next, add on a few extra numbers or characters to make it more complicated and harder to guess. For example, if your base password is Chevy Rover, you could add some numbers to it to make it more complicated and mess everybody up. How about, say, your grandfather's year of birth or an old address or telephone number? So our password might be more complicated now. I'll use the made-up birth year of my grandfather, 1930. So now my password is Chevy Rover 1930. Notice my C and my R are capitalized because we want to try to mix these things up as much as possible to make things as difficult as possible for these hackers. Next, maybe add a couple of characters to make it even more difficult and harder to guess. For example, your base password, Chevy Rover 1930. And then we're going to add a few of your favorite non-alpha and non-numeric characters to make it even more tricky. So you can throw those in spaces between the words so it's easier for you to remember. I've seen people use stars. I've seen people use brackets. I've seen people do all kinds of really crazy stuff here, and you can do that. It's just whatever's easier for you to remember. And then we'll add something else at the end, maybe a hashtag or pound sign or something. And now we've got this incredibly complicated password that you probably can remember. 2 words together, capitals at the beginning of each one of the words, or you can screw things up and put the capital at the end of the word and the beginning of the word. Remember, the more variation, the better. Make these things as complicated as possible. Some people alternate letters. Some people, other people use keyboard strokes. They do AS, like the home row on your keyboard, which is terrible too, because that's been guessed years ago. Some websites only allow certain characters, so you might not be able to use your favorite non-alpha, non-numeric characters. So just be aware of those limitations. Now, for your own sanity, and to make things even more difficult, you can actually add a few prefixes or suffixes to remember what you're using this particular one. Because remember, you don't want to use the same exact password across all your accounts because it's easier for a hacker to get access to them. So maybe for Yahoo, you could add the word Yahoo at the end. And then for Gmail, for example, you could put the word Gmail in the beginning. And then maybe a dash, so you know what's going on there. You see what I'm doing here? And you can alternate that. You could put one before, one after. And this way you've got this incredibly complex password with a combination of caps, lowercase letters. You've got some numbers. You've got some symbols in here. It's really long, and it's going to be really nasty and virtually impossible for somebody to hack in a reasonable amount of time. By the time they hack this, heck, you should create a new password. I recommend doing it once every 12 months. Just change your keywords. Maybe flip them around, put them backwards, change the capitalization or something, and then start this whole process all over again. So in the effect somebody did get one, then you're going to change it, and they're going to have to start their game all over again. Just remember your personal base, what you're starting with. In my case, it's Chevy Rover. Should be easy enough for you to remember. Again, you're going to drive yourself nuts. Now, try not to use your kids' names, birthdays, the year of your birth, or references to any other personal details. Why? Because hackers routinely troll Facebook and Twitter and other social media for clues to passwords like these. And just avoid using the number 69. Why? Well, just because. Now, there are things called password managers. And these are programs that can store your passwords for you to help avoid driving yourself crazy. And some of those are really cool. They store and sync your passwords for easy logins at your favorite websites. They're very, very convenient. However, there's always a downside. Any intruder who has access to your computer, either through remote control, through a hack or something, or somebody that you let in, or somebody that gets into your house, or a friend or neighbor that uses your computer, even a family member, that person who's sitting at your computer, logged into your account, might be able to easily view all of your saved passwords. In Chrome, it's actually stupid easy. You just visit the settings and passwords, enter your Windows password if you have one, and that link will open up those passwords for you and display them in plain English. So that's nasty. And other browsers do the same thing too. So a lot of people avoid those. If you're going to use your browser's password storage capabilities, just make sure you've got a really strong Windows password, and don't share that with anybody. You don't have to. Give everybody their own accounts. And if they have their own Windows accounts, they won't be able to get into yours, as long as you don't leave it logged on. So be smart about it. Now, there's other things. You can use a password manager service, such as RoboForm, LastPass, or Dashlane, which keep track of multiple complex passwords for you. And after you create a strong master password for your password manager, it can create like almost seemingly random passwords for your other accounts, and it'll remember them for you as well. Now, RoboForm, one of the more popular ones that we see in our store, claims that the only password managers It's the only password manager that lets the user decide whether to store your logins locally or in the cloud. And that's kind of neat. So you could actually you could tell RoboForm, hey, I want to store all my passwords on this USB flash drive. And you can just throw that on your keychain and insert that in your computer. And only when that keychain or that USB flash drive is inserted into that particular computer will it have access to your RoboForm passwords. So that's keeping it with you and off the cloud, which is very, very secure. Of course, you could lose your flash drive, which would really stink because you'd lose all your RoboForm saved passwords. But then you need the master password to get in, and hopefully it's going to be very complicated and difficult to find that. RoboForum, I believe, is still free to use on multiple computers and multiple devices for so many logins, and then you can upgrade from there if you have to store maybe over 10 or 15. I'm not sure what the latest number is. LastPass, a lot of people are talking about this. It's one of the more popular free password manager apps. It works on your desktop and on your smartphone, both on Android or iOS. Now, LastPass, like many of the other password managers, auto-populates your passwords on websites, as well as personal information you use to fill out forms when you go shopping on the internet or request information. This is a feature that many people have come accustomed with on popular internet browsers like Chrome and Firefox, but think of your password manager as a more secure, centralized version of that. So it saves those passwords across multiple applications and websites. And I believe it also goes across browsers. So if you flip between Firefox and Chrome, LastPass and some of the password managers will keep a database of all those also and let you work across different browsers. LastPass also has a password generator that creates strong passwords, and then it instantly remembers them for you, which is nice. And I believe LastPass is the one with the auditor function. So it'll go through periodically, look at your passwords, it'll say, hey, you've used this password somewhere else, don't do it, change it to something else. And also it alerts you when it's time to change an old password, which is nice. And again, you should change your passwords periodically, at least once a year. Just flip that thing around for it and change it everywhere. Unfortunately, password managing utilities that are stored on a cloud server, like anything else that's accessible over the internet, is hackable. LastPass, as a matter of fact, detected an intrusion to their servers a few years back, and it caused quite a stir. So again, nothing's perfect. Everything's hackable, so you have to use as much caution as you possibly can. The last thing we'll talk about here is something called multi-factor authentication. So the next line of defense, two or multi-factor authentication, which I use, it's wonderful. And what this is a mechanism in which you're asked to enter a second secret code that only you could possibly have access to get access to a particular website, like an email, a bank account, or anything else that you deem to be secured. A lot of them will text a code to your smartphone. So this way you have your passwords and you enter that in, and then it'll say, hey, I've just texted this number to your password, to your smartphone, enter this secret code, so I'll give you access to it. So there's two steps, a password and then a code or something else. And that's multi-factor authentication. Very, very helpful. Very, very good. This way, so even if a hacker managed to get into your passwords, they still need the texted code from your smartphone to access your account. And it's quite unlikely that the hacker's going to have access to your email passwords and your smartphone unless he's standing behind you with a gun to your head, and in that case you're screwed anyway. So it's now very, very commonplace, this two or multi-factor authentication, for many email and social media accounts. So there are many ways to protect yourself. Just be smart about it. Change your password, make it a complicated password, and just use some common sense. Just don't use that silly stuff that everybody else is doing, and you should be in good shape. My name is Chuck Fresh. Please like and subscribe, and check out computercareclinic.com. Thanks for watching.